Why don't ordinary Russians understand that nuclear threats to the West can turn against them? What is this strange phenomenon? Why, then, do the Russians so stubbornly continue to pronounce threats to use some kind of force in response to the actions of the West? While in the West itself it is generally not customary to scatter such statements? Why do Russians threaten so easily? For example, for the supply of weapons to Ukraine? Under some force is meant a nuclear weapon? Well, let's assume that this is it, really a nuclear weapon. And then what? It is worth starting with this: Russians are not used to thinking, or rather, ordinary Russians. And therefore, they do not quite understand how such threats can end for them. By the way, in the Soviet Union they never used nuclear weapons, although they frightened them. And they scared me a lot. Even the Tsar bomb was blown up for a demonstration of strength, not only for the sake of testing. Why didn't they apply? Because there were scientists in the Soviet Union. And these scientists really developed and tested various types of weapons. But, at the same time, they also dissuaded from its use, realizing the horrific consequences of its use. And they were listened to. These same scientists had weight, and it was fashionable to listen to them. Such was the mentality of the Soviet people. It was fashionable to be a scientist, it was fashionable to listen to their opinion. No, the Soviet Union was not better than today's Russia. But the mentality there was different. Today's Russia is a deeply criminal state. The dashing 90s served as a potion for its preparation when there were countless different gangs and groups in the country. The Soviet Union was formed, though by criminals, but not by gangs. And this is the difference. Hitler's fascists were also criminals, but nevertheless they had an ideology. Bad and criminal ideology, but it was. Therefore, corruption in Hitler's Germany was on a much smaller scale than in today's Russia. Because gangs are used to living in a big way. Without money, luxury and theft, they cannot imagine their existence. It is not surprising that they have such an army, reminiscent of a criminal gang. It's not even an army, it's a maquich. As it was in the 90s, maquich, followed by robbery, well, that is, squeezing by violence, and further down the list. So, were there such things in the Soviet Union? No. Undoubtedly there was crime, and gangs were, but still, the main basis for the existence of the Soviet Union was the propaganda of ideology. The injection of money into science was colossal. Therefore, a strong respect for scientists was cultivated by propaganda. What is happening in modern Russia? Scientists are almost nobody, and there is almost no way to call them. Where is the cult of scientific literature, as it was in the USSR? Where is the cult of the scientist? He is not. Instead, there is a cult of propagandists, incomprehensible politicians who speak incomprehensible nonsense. Therefore, in such an environment, of course, there is a situation where the opinion of scientists will not only not be heard, but even listening to the opinion of a scientist is not fashionable in Russia now, and somehow even shameful. After all, who is a classical scientist? A botanist who spends all his time with books, well, now not with books, in the library, but on the internet, where there is access to the World Library of Literature. But this is somehow not cool. From the point of view of a gopnik who is used to being the king in his court. This man is a scientist, he is some kind of shameful person who needs to be knight-merited, and money should be taken from him every month for going to work on the territory of a gopnik. And the minset of a gopnik, in Russia, is the main minset, at least in all cities that are further away from Moscow and St. Petersburg. With such an attitude towards scientists, who will listen to their opinion? So it turns out, do the Russians understand that if their threats are realized and missiles are launched anywhere from their territory, the Russians are very likely to run into a retaliatory strike? Answer: no. Do not understand. But does the gopnik, who leads a similar lifestyle, understand that such a lifestyle can end badly for him at any moment? You can find the answer in how these very gopniks, who are called the Russian army, come on safari to Ukraine, and for some reason they are not at all embarrassed that they are being killed there in huge numbers. The life of a gopnik is a risk. Every day he sits on a powder keg, and even if he is scared, purely by inertia, he goes forward. Because I'm used to assessing my life soberly, and this is 0. 0. Gopnik is forced to get used to living one day in order to enjoy, if you can call it that. From what was sent today, and tomorrow, at least the grass does not grow. Therefore, the gopnik lives now, not tomorrow. Robbery and rape now, not tomorrow. Well, what if almost all of today's Russia has such a mindset? In the Soviet Union, people thought about the prospects and knew how to make plans for life. For example, they saved up money for an apartment, a car, they stood in various queues. Especially in post-Stalin times. That is, they did not think like a gopnik from the gateway, and they had at least some idea of planning their career, life in advance. Modern Russia lives one day. In this connection, the main answer to the question asked in this thread is, no, the Russians do not understand the threat that Western nuclear weapons can pose for them. They do not understand, and what is most surprising, they do not care. For them there is only an entrance, a doorway, and tomorrow does not exist. Most of this country is used to taking only here and now, while you can.